Hi, I'm Joseph Bradley, author of Questionnaire and Executive in Technology. I want to talk to you about a very important topic today with a bit of a twist. We're going to talk about inclusion and diversity, but we're also going to talk about artificial intelligence. Let's get right at it. When you think about inclusion and diversity, first it's important to recognize that diversity is the potential to create value. Inclusion is the realization of that value by driving full participation. By example, I mean the following. You can have a meeting and a great discussion. You can have a great room filled with 25 diverse leaders of all different backgrounds. Yet if you're discussing the business topic at hand and only two people are talking the whole time, it might be a diverse room, but it sure isn't an inclusive room. Value is not created until everyone gets in and drives a level of full participation. And from an executive and technology perspective, we know that inclusion is valuable. Why do we know? When you look at the studies, companies that are inclusive and diverse are 2 times more likely to identify and build leaders. They're 3.6 times more likely to be able to deal with performance problems. They're 3.8 times more likely to coach and improve performance of their people. They're 1.7 times more likely to be innovative leaders in the marketplace. They're 1.8 times more likely to adapt to change. And they generate 2.3 times more cash flow per employee than non-inclusive and diverse organizations. In other words, inclusion and diversity is not just the right thing to do, it's the profitable thing to do. But what happens when you're talking about teams that are made up of humans and non-humans? Artificial intelligence, yes. When you ask most people if they engage around artificial intelligence, they'll tell you a recent study said only 33% of consumers said that they actually use AI often. Where the truth of the matter is about 77% actually use AI-powered services or devices. My father is an avid car guy, loves automobiles. We had just flew home from a trip. It's got to be closer to midnight. Jumps on the internet and is engaging around talking with this dealership that happens to be, I think, in Dallas, Texas, around this car. And he's chatting away, right? And he's asking him all these different questions. And he turns to me and he says, Joseph, can you believe the level of service that this dealership has? And I turned to him, I said, Dad, you do realize you're not talking to a human. What do you mean, right? Chatbots, right? Very, very prevalent everywhere in today's interaction with humans. But oftentimes, we're unaware of that. And so the question becomes, and as I wrote in my book, Questionnaire, oftentimes, if you want to be successful in the digital age, it's not about changing your answers, as it fundamentally is about pausing and changing the question. The question that we got to ask ourselves is, in a world that exists with artificial intelligence, what does inclusion and diversity mean? In other words, what is the value? What does inclusion and diversity mean in a world, in a team that's comprised of humans and artificial intelligence? What does it mean? Simply, it means everything. If you think about the challenges that we face today with inclusion and diversity, if you happen to be a female in tech and you have the same job description and the same background, you're applying the same job description, you have the same background, you have the same qualifications as a Caucasian male, you will get paid 22% less. If you're an African American man and you are accused and convicted of a same crime, but the same criminal background as a Caucasian man, you will be sentenced to 20% longer. This is in a world and an environment where we know we're trying to change it. We know it's not right. And we have a lot of good people trying to change it. But yet, it's the bias that is embedded in the system is so difficult to root out. But what happens when that bias is potentially coded in the system? How hard will it be then? So my point to you is, artificial intelligence can generate a tremendous amount of value for us in society, but we have to pause And we have to raise our voices to be heard to ensure that we are asking fundamentally the right question. If you think about who is making AI, who are the programmers, who is coding artificial intelligence, when you think about who is doing these things, you look at the makeup, what you find is you provide a predominantly male gender, and you find in technology, especially in Silicon Valley, but you look globally, you find them coming from one part of the world. If you happen to be a non-male and you happen not to reside in this one Asia continent, you should be concerned around how and what data and how these programs are being used. If you think about and you talk about the ability to create wealth for one's family, that all starts with employment, right? You have a solid educational background and you seek employment, whether that's working for a VC fund, whether that's being an entrepreneur, you seek some area, some avenue to create value. By 2020, over 50% of the talent acquisition apps will include some sort of artificial intelligence. In other words, AI will be used to identify talent. And so, I fundamentally believe that now is the time for us to begin to ask some critically important questions so AI can be used not to eliminate or hinder the human spirit, but to enhance it, to allow us to reach new levels. But I believe fundamentally it starts with a couple of core questions, 3 in particular. Number 1, what decisions are we going to entrust to AI? If you happen to own an automated vehicle, autonomous car, if a passenger or a citizen runs in front of you and you happen to be on a narrow road and maybe there's a jogger that decides to cross the road, does the car protect the citizen crossing the road, or does it protect you as a higher priority? Who makes that decision? Again, what decisions are we going to entrust to AI? Number 2, we should be asking the question. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't need to be a data scientist to ask this question. But if you're going to be presented with AI, ask the programmers, ask the company, how have you eliminated bias in the data? Critically important question. How have you eliminated bias in the data? And the last one, probably one of the more important questions. Where has AI made an incorrect decision in what I'm considering, and tell me why? So again, if you're thinking about using AI, I think it can create a lot of value for you as your organization. But I think as a business leader, as an individual, as a consumer, as an educator, as a student, there is a core set of questions that we have to ask. What decisions are we going to entrust to AI? How have we eliminated bias in the data? And where has AI made a bad decision and why? So that we can understand. Because we can't afford to treat AI as a black box. And I will tell you why. Because machines can be responsible. Artificial intelligence, they can be responsible for doing a particular task, for getting an action item done, for helping us achieve new levels of performance, new levels of success. But people, humans, friends, family, business leaders, we are ultimately accountable. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back next week and we'll dive more deeply into this question of AI and what does it mean to balance inclusion and diversity in a world with artificial intelligence. You guys have a great day and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.